Welcome to Lioness at the Door, a podcast where we discuss creating a life of joy by embracing the gift of agency, our power to choose and be accountable, which gives us the amazing opportunity to grow. We're two regular girls talking about the challenge of converting what we believe into what we actually do and who we are becoming. I'm Amy Rasmussen, a teacher by profession, a wife and mother by choice, an optimist by nature, and happy by design. I'm here with my friend Jackie, the creator of Lioness at the Door.
Hi, I am Jackie Sorensen. I am a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a holistic health coach for women of faith. The image of Lioness at the Door is meant to inspire us to see ourselves as converted, strong, and able women at the threshold of choice. The door represents our opportunity to choose our path moment by moment in every circumstance.
So just remember, as we talk this whole episode, that we're looking for those thresholds and those doors in our lives where we get to choose, we get to decide, we get to do differently than what we've done before. This last, 4 weeks or so, we have been talking about clutter. And something that has come to my attention as I've talked to some of you who've listened, and as I have thought about what we've talked about, is that we are defining clutter in a very different way than we usually hear clutter defined. Usually it's like, oh, clutter, it's that stuff that's all over your desk that needs to be cleaned up. Oh, clutter, it's that, stuff that your kids haven't put away. So it's defined maybe in a slightly different way than how we're defining it. If those of you who have been with us from the beginning of talking about clutter, if you can remember Jackie's story about being in the car, waiting for her daughter to get out of some music lessons. She was working on something when all of a sudden, a very loud truck in the background or a hum of a truck, it stopped. And she became aware that there had been this noise that was draining her energy. And that is kind of how we kicked off everything about clutter. So what I want to remind all of you of is that clutter is unnecessary noise. It's the noise that we could clear away. It's not that paper that you're like, there's a reason that paper is there. Because after school today, my child and I are going to go over that paper and look at it. So this morning the paper's out, and this afternoon we are going to deal with it. And it might look like noise on the counter because your counter is not totally cleared off. But we might call that necessary noise, right? If you're a mother of young children, you might be being told somewhere out there that you need to minimize your children's toys. Now, you might need to downsize. I have no idea. I'm not in your house. However, it's also possible that because you have little children, you're going to have the necessary noise of the diaper bag and the wipes and the bottles or the breast pump or whatever, and the toys. You're just going to have the necessary noise of those things, right?
Right.
But it's the unnecessary noise. So as you have become aware, hopefully, over the past several weeks, maybe it's unnecessary noise of where the toys get left because you don't have a bin to put them in. And so you recognize, oh, now we have a bin. It's in the same room and it's not beautiful, but now they are put away when baby goes to sleep. Mm-hmm. So you may become aware of that. So just remember, clutter is unnecessary noise. Do you have anything to add to that, Jackie, just so we're clear on our definition?
I think also part of what we're talking about is having the energy to live our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that the unnecessary noise is a problem is because we are giving energy to it and we don't even know it.
Right.
We're surrounded by things that are sucking the life out of us and we don't even know it. Or
and it's unnecessary.
We have this spiritual dissonance, or we have so much in our schedules that we can't possibly keep up, that keeps us in this perpetual state of feeling lacking and of feeling like we're running too fast. So yes, unnecessary noise.
Yeah. Now, the other thing we want to talk about today has to do with the fact that some of you may have discovered, if you tried anything as you've been listening, that you started to become aware. And as you start to become aware, you started to experience discomfort, possibly even pain. And you're thinking, that's not what I signed up for, right? I was becoming aware, so life could be better. Well, I just want to compare this to the fact that I did some exercises this week that I have not done in a long time. And as I did those physical exercises, I'm like, it's feeling fine now. And it felt fine that whole day. But I knew that the next day I was going to become aware of muscles that I had not used in a while. And that discomfort and that pain would affect me being able to, it was leg exercises, would affect me going up and down the stairs, would affect me when I sit down, would even affect me in the night, right? That I could feel those muscles again, because now I'm aware that they are there and I am promoting growth in those muscles.
Right.
But growth and discomfort go hand in hand. So we wanted to talk a bit today about, and just address it and recognize that if you're out there trying to become aware of some of these things, whether that's going around your house and making that list for your environmental clutter, or whether that's sitting down with your calendar and opening it and really writing everything you have down on a piece of paper, which you haven't been doing because you're like, oh, I know it's going to make me want to die. But you finally did it and you're like, yep, I want to die, right? Or the spiritual dissonance part that we just shared with you last week, where you're like, yeah, I can tell stuff's off, but if I go to God, he's going to tell me some stuff, right? and so you're aware that there's going to be that discomfort and pain, or maybe you've already stepped into it a little bit and now you're shying away. So let's address that, Jackie. Let's talk about the fact that this awareness will absolutely bring discomfort.
Yeah. And the next sentence is, the discomfort is not a sign of a problem. The discomfort is the sign of progress.
Yep, that discomfort is growth.
It's growth, it's progress. And if you are terribly uncomfortable, maybe you need to have a little conversation with yourself about your response. Because if I, for instance, take the blinders off and, walk around my house with my piece of paper in hand, and I'm being curious, where are the problem spots? What's happening here? What have I not been looking at? What have I been using my energy to keep hidden from myself so that I don't notice it, because I don't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing that and things are coming to my awareness, if the next thing that I do is beat myself to a pulp,
right,
because those things are there, it's going to be far more uncomfortable than it needs to be.
right. So I would call that, like, there is necessary pain.
Right.
Right. And there's unnecessary pain.
Right.
So the necessary pain with my physical exercise is that, yes, my muscles will be sore. Unnecessary pain is if I'm like, I am going to do even more the next day. I don't allow for that rest period, or I'm going to push it so hard I injure myself, whatever, right? That's unnecessary pain. I didn't need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to poke my legs with needles so that they hurt more than the muscles.
Right.
So I think what we're talking about here is that necessary discomfort for growth and the unnecessary pain that comes if we're going to beat ourselves up about it.
Yes, exactly. So you all know that addiction, which is a massive problem in our culture, has a lot to do with saving things for later. Like, something really horrific happens and I need to go through the grieving process, but I don't want to right now. I think it might take me down right now, or I don't feel like I have the support right now, or for whatever reason, I'm procrastinating moving through my feelings about something. And the addiction is just like this massive distraction from the feelings that I need to go through, the process that I need to go through. Well, we're kind of talking about the same thing. When we're coming into clearer boundaries with our own agency, and we're taking responsibility for the piles, for the schedule, for the discomfort that we're feeling in our spirit, that is going to come with the choice of moving through. Like, sometimes it truly is a grieving process that we are backing up from, right? Because And I don't remember if I shared this or not. One of the clutter spots for me at one point in my life was going through the boxes of little children's clothes. Baby
Oh, I don't know if you talked about this, but I had a similar experience when I went through my kids' clothes. So continue.
clothes. And I had put it off because I was so tender about it. But when push came to shove, like, we're moving, I need to go through that stuff. I really had to give myself a few hours to I sobbed through the whole process. There weren't that many boxes, but I mean, all the feelings, all the memories of my children in those beautiful the little dress or the little bow tie. And I remember the picture that was taken, and I'm kind of grieving the fact that that's not going to happen anymore.
Right.
And it wasn't the way I wanted it to go. So
Right.
there was a grief that was attached to those items that in order for me to make decisions about them and to move forward with it, I had to feel it. I had to allow myself to that space to process what those items brought up for me.
And I think that kind of grief can sometimes be very surprising, right? And once we become aware of it, it can make sense. But I think sometimes you might be going through your home and thinking, I don't know why I'm not going through that. You don't really understand that subconsciously you are going to have to go through that process of this phase is over.
Mm-hmm.
And not everything was roses. Not everything was the picture I want, or whatever it is. And some people aren't going to have that with clothes. They'll have it with something else, right? But I think sometimes it's the grief that surprises us that can be especially hard to choose to then deal with, right? We assume we're going to have grief if someone dies or whatever. But this idea of I'm having grief over children's clothes could come as a surprise.
Big deal. Big deal. So part of what we're challenging ourselves and our listeners to do is to have the faith, have the courage to gently move into awareness about the things that need our attention. Maybe your family is growing and you need to convert that walk-in closet to a place where somebody can sleep. Mm-hmm. Maybe you need the storage area to be, you need to make it something else. Maybe you just feel boxed in, like you need space. You just need space to breathe. You need space to think. There are all kinds of reasons why it's really proactive and healthy for us to take stock of where we are and what our environment's looking like and what our schedule's looking like and how we're feeling.
Well, and I also want to say, if we look too much at just like, well, if I just get stuff out of my house, that's going to solve the problem, right? In a physical environment kind of way. But we didn't necessarily cultivate awareness. If we're just like, get rid of. Now, getting rid of is part of it. But I have seen people who they do get rid of, but no awareness is cultivated. And so they're still sitting in that place of like, I still fell off. Right. And so and scheduling too. It's not just like, take everything off the schedule, clear the week, clear the month. Because if we're not aware of like, well, why am I clearing certain things? Why am I getting rid of certain things, but keeping other things? Then we've gone through the process with basically avoiding all of the growth that was potentially there.
Yeah. And this is the pain of agenthood. And this is why we avoid it oftentimes. Yeah. I don't want to make that decision. I don't want the fallout. I don't want to have to deal with the conversation that's going to mean between me and my spouse. Mm-hmm. I don't want to have to deal with that teenager. I just going to let this lie. We don't sometimes want the consequence of making a decision. And so we just don't. And then we just don't grow. We just don't get to where we don't take the next step in our own evolution.
And so often then we end up with chronic issues, right? And I'm saying chronic pain, but I'm not necessarily even meaning physical pain, although it can turn into that. But we can have the chronic emotional and stress and just all of that stuff. And then it's always constantly there because we're refusing to make that choice that our agency gives us to deal with the hard thing.
And then
it frees us.
Yeah. And that brings up the point that sometimes, and I remember this happening once when I was substituting on a day at school in the high school, and which I really enjoyed doing. And this particular teacher had students who took charge of each class while he wasn't there, very capably, just did a beautiful job. I had nothing to do but just be there, you know. So in my wandering around and just, I was listening to them, I was applauding them, I was totally enjoying it, but I just started like, well, I guess I'll put these chairs in order over here. I guess I'll pick up the stuff off the floor. You know, I was just wandering around. And one of the students walked in at one point and kind of went, if this area over here isn't a mess, I am not going to be comfortable. Like, you changed it and now I'm uncomfortable, even though it came into order. So we can get used to, and it can become our comfort to live in something that might not be really healthy.
Right.
And it might not be really healthy for us, or it might not be healthy for our spouse. Maybe he really likes things clear and clean. And maybe we don't feel that way, or maybe we don't want to deal with it. And so it becomes this difficulty between us because I'm not honoring him and how he would like things to be. So sometimes it's the discomfort of, we have to have this conversation.
Right.
I need to learn how to be kind, gentle, respectful, and assert my needs and feelings while he is being kind, gentle, respectful,
right,
and asserting his. We're practicing, right. We're practicing.
Yeah. Oh, it's that trick of realizing that discomfort and pain means growth. But I think also being able to recognize when it's necessary pain and when it's unnecessary pain.
Right.
And being aware of that. And I think maybe something that could be said here too is if you found yourself going into this process in any of the three areas we talked about, and you are becoming aware, and then you're recognizing a tendency to be like, why is this so horrible? You might also just consider other factors. So did you decide to jump into trying this when you were like seriously depleted and exhausted? Well, maybe set aside for a minute, get your rest, and then do it with energy, right? Make a plan to have energy when you do it and see if that changes. Because sometimes I think there can be something as simple as that that's just like, oh, okay. No, I was doing it at 10 o'clock at night when I was totally dead from the day, but one thing after another, and I couldn't get it done, but I was like, I'm doing this today. And at 10 o'clock, you're doing it. And it's just the timing's wrong, right? Or one person mentioned to me, and this is a little teaser for our listener question when we have that in a future episode. But she's like, I've been sick and I feel so out of control. And what I said to her is I said, well, you've been sick and you're actually not done. Like you're recovering a little bit, but so everything seems like it's horrible. Maybe just give yourself another couple of days before you decide to take these steps. And don't give yourself 3 years, like give yourself just a couple of days before you step into it. So I think if you're finding that tendency to start beating yourself up, one of the really maybe quick and easy things you can address is there something else that I can take care of really easily and then come back and step into this, like the sleep, or am I hungry?
Oh, please don't try to do anything when you're hungry.
I mean, don't try and do it when you're hungry. Don't try and be like, I'm going to cram this in like the 5 minutes before my kids get home. Like some of these things can just set yourself up for disaster and set yourself up for unnecessary pain. So be a little intentional. It doesn't mean you have to have 3 hours of time to do it, but if you can intentionally choose the 5 minutes when you do it, if that's how long you have, then I think that can help. And then also just being gentle with yourself to recognize if you're going into it after the most stressful week of your life, or you were, are just coming off being sick, or you just had what all of us had, a little bit of that transition into what is now spring, right? I mean, we're recording this at a time when that transition to spring just kind of happened. Yeah. And that can sometimes mean that there was a shift in schedules, right? Did certain sports just start? So you're just barely trying to figure out your groove for that.
Yeah.
So I think it's just helpful to be aware of those things too, so that we don't get into the unnecessary pain.
Yeah. And one other little caveat. We've talked a lot about agenthood, and we've talked a lot about victim brain. And sometimes we can be trying to step into our agenthood, and then that voice in our head that is full on victim becomes the perpetrator. Like, why have you allowed this mess to happen? You are blah, 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 blah. That happens so easily when we're trying to come into being full agent. We're coming out of victim brain. That little perpetrator voice, bam, that can come in so swiftly. We don't even recognize it. And what happens after we give ourselves this really severe tongue lashing is we're back into victim. Now I feel horrible. So what we're talking about is stepping out gently into our agenthood without that explosion of, now I've got to beat myself up because that's what I'm used to, because I'm a victim, in order to go back into the comfort of being the victim. So just being aware that it's not going to do me any good to treat myself badly in any way in this process. And I can stay best in my agent self when I'm not waffling back and forth. Am I now the perpetrator of my own abuse, right? Or now I'm feeling horrible because I just berated myself into the ground. And then in your victim brain, then you're looking around because it's got to be somebody else. It's got to be somebody else's fault. Well, my husband just walked in the door and he just looked at me wrong. Right. Because I'm already in that, I've just been beaten down. Woe is me, blah. And that takes us right back out of our agenthood.
So I think being aware and knowing that there may be that little bit of resistance, even as you're gently trying to step into this agenthood, because if you're aware of it, then you can be like, okay, no, no, that's not happening. We're not having that conversation. Victim part of my brain. I think we're working on sending you on a lifelong vacation, right? You can just go somewhere else. But I think it helps as you step into it to know that that's going to be there and there's not anything wrong with you. It's actually perfectly normal that that's going to happen, and then you press forward. And maybe you give someone a phone call. I don't know, to just say, okay, I started doing this and I hit that resistance. Can you just help me remember that I don't need to beat myself up, right? And that's where those good friendships and stuff will come in that we talked about with spiritual dissonance. So.
Yes, right.
Well, I'm glad we got to talk about that discomfort and pain that just comes with growth, because it can be so hard to, I don't know, to remember to accept that part of the experience as necessary.
And to recognize that it doesn't mean something's wrong.
Right, exactly.
We feel discomfort. We think, oh, I must be going the wrong direction. Nope.
Sometimes you're going the right direction. Often you're, and it's all the type of pain. It's the necessary pain versus the unnecessary pain. So let's just have pain in the right direction.
Yes.
We would love to hear your thoughts. You can reach out to us at jackie.sorensen@gmail.com. You can comment in our Facebook posts or where we post this on YouTube. But we'd love to hear from you. If you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you think something's confusing, or you think, oh, but in this situation, it's different. Throw that one at us and we'll see what we might be able to do with it.
Yep. So thanks for being with us. I am Jackie Sorensen.
And I'm Amy Rasmussen. Please tell your friends to come and join us here. And thank you for joining us this week.
And remember that the door of decision exists wherever you are right now. Take good care.
See you later.